2026 Dropback ITL Symposium will be held Friday, February 27th at 8:30 a.m. in room 205 of the Indiana Convention Center. This year's title sponsor is Dropback. Dropback is the ultimate and front office software in the college football space. Luke Bogus, who's in the Indianapolis airport right now, has agreed to carve out a little bit of time to join us. He'll also be my co-host at the symposium. Luke, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. It's going to be big shoes to fill from CJ last year, but really excited to co-host with you, Neil.
We don't ask anyone to be CJ. CJ is CJ. We'll leave that alone, Luke. As long as you're Luke, then you're fine. All right, so Luke, we are really interested to talk to you a little bit about Dropback. But first of all, our first question typically is, how did you get where you are? What's your origin story, man?
Yeah, good question. Origin's I've always been a technology meathead. Knew I wanted to work in tech from when the first iPhone came out, went to school for computer science and business, worked at Huddle actually as my first job as an intern. So that was kind of my foray into sports tech. But then I worked at a few Bay Area companies, Microsoft. And so I've always loved technology. And as a sports guy, or basically being from Nebraska, I've always been a sports guy. And so I'm a Cornhusker fan, which this job is, forced me to kind of compartmentalize my personal fandom with the business. But all to be said, I've always loved sports. I've always loved tech. And so the opportunity now to be able to kind of do both things that I love every single day has been awesome. So I'd say that having fun is like the ultimate hack of being able to do long hours and try to work with teams and help make them better. And so that's kind of how we got here. Is we built technology for some of the top emerging front offices in the Power Four, growing presence in the Group of Five, and obviously excited to share more throughout this episode.
This was going to be one of my last questions, but I got to ask now. So you're obviously a big Red guy.
Yeah.
I think you're in a band. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Good pull.
Tell me about your whole fandom, your career there, what it's like to be in time in Lincoln, all those kinds of things.
Yeah. No, born and raised 90 minutes away. So, I went to my first Cornhusker game when I was 5 years old. So it was a destiny that I had to go there to be a student. I was not very good at playing football. And so I did the next best thing, which was get front row seats because I was part of the band. And so anyway, I loved being able to, be close to the game, be really locked into the game, which is like a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it was during a period of, Husker history where I didn't get to go on many bowl games and a lot of away trips. So the fandom part of me was a little bummed in that end. But no, it was fun. It was like a cool way to, roll off some steam from the, grind of computer science classes by playing. And then obviously, getting to walk through the same tunnel as the players and perform on the field was, pretty cool.
And for those that are, again, of the younger generation and don't understand what Nebraska football means as a blue blood program, Lincoln's a great city. I went to school at Nebraska Wesleyan, Division III school right down the road. Lincoln is a great college town, great football town. Getting them back to hopefully 10 wins, Luke, would be that's good for college football.
Yeah, you're telling me, man, God, you're what are they, Prairie Wolves? Go Prairie Wolves,
There
baby.
we go. Get a shout out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we love to nerd out on team nicknames here, but we'll leave that for after the show. Okay, so you're not new to startups. You alluded to the fact that you've worked in sports tech before. Tell us about Brim. My understanding is it was a coffee service of some note. And you took advantage of the COVID era when I guess it's kind of a precursor to the whole food delivery service ideas that we have now, which have kind of really taken hold. But give us a little bit of background on how that all worked.
Yeah, this is some crazy polls. My band history, Brim. Brim was kind of my first taste of being an entrepreneur. It was a company that me and a friend from college attempted to start when I was a junior in college. And that was right before COVID hit. And basically our favorite coffee shop next to campus shut down. And we were like, that sucks. Like they shut down. Like they sent all their people home. They couldn't deliver, or they couldn't actually, deliver their service because, people can't come in and grab coffee. So, he and I thought, well, how can we help actually deliver the coffee to, the people who still want to support the shop during the crazy times of COVID. And so started with that one shop. It expanded to about 10. Didn't work out, but I think it was just a cool lesson and cold calling people and trying to understand their pain points. And at the time, there was DoorDash, there was Uber, and there was all these different solutions, but just because a space is crowded doesn't mean that the problem is solved. And I think what we found is that those companies were taking cuts. And so there's always business elements that could be improved. And obviously the product experience, customers didn't always want to finagle with an app or have things delivered. So there's a pickup angle. So anyway, just like by listening to our customers and being on site with them and understanding their pains, talking to them every day, like that's kind of what led us to building an app that, had a bunch of people using it at the time. And then, like I said, didn't work out. So we decided to graduate and go different ways, he and I, but it was a fun first attempt at starting something. And, here we are 5 or 6 years later trying again.
Now, Luke, obviously you're making a phone call as you were doing a lot of the tech aspects. Were you also behind the wheel delivering hot cups to people? I mean, when you're in a startup, you've got every job. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I would say everything except for that. Thankfully, it was pickup only. And so with that, we were able to get people back in the coffee shop, and people that got furloughed were able to come back. So everything but, you pretty much have to mop the floors when you're starting a company. So
no doubt about it. All right, so you've entered into a space that is not without competition, Luke. There are more software companies that I can name that are already doing a lot of business in the college football space. Why did you choose this space? What makes you think you can succeed when a lot of others have failed?
Yeah, it's actually, I kind of just alluded to it, just because of space is crowded doesn't mean that the problem is solved. I mean, if it's crowded, it's clearly not solved because, when you talk to these teams, they're using 6, 7, 8 different vendors and software, solutions to try to construct the most competitive roster. And so what we have found is that, there's some great competition and companies out there, but it seems that they're really good at helping you with your scouting workflows, or they're really good at analytics, or they're really good at this money component. I think our unique insight is that money is going to drive many of the decision-making factors in this new era because teams have a salary cap and you have to be really rigorous about your slot values and how you think about decisions from a monetary perspective. Because in the past, when you have infinite roster spots, you can just throw an offer at a guy and hope he comes. Now, every single roster spot is, finite and it's important. And then there's finite roster spots, but there's also a finite budget. And so every decision has 10x more gravity. And to make great decisions, you have to have great data. And so now you have 8 different places to try to make one grave decision. We've heard it's just really, real frustrating for general managers and emerging front offices. So we're striving to kind of be the one-stop front office workspace for these emerging college sports front offices.
Okay, and you're starting to get penetration at the P4 level and the G5 level. Is there a plan for going beyond football? Is there a plan for going beyond just those two? Is there a plan for the NFL? What's the long-term vision right now for Dropback?
Yeah, I think that, we're laser focused on college sports. I think we're inspired by the pro sports because pro teams, they have an army of software engineers, data scientists, quantitative researchers. Like these teams spend millions on headcount for making great off the field decisions with on the field data. And now that college sports teams have to do the same, what they have been doing for decades, unfortunately, just isn't going to work in this new era because every decision has a dollar amount next to it. You need to back up those dollar amounts with rigorous processes to have made the decision in the first place. So basically, any team that has a budget to spend on their roster in the college sports space is our market. And so I'm actually here in Indy because we just got done onboarding one of our latest Big East clients. I'm actually flying out to help onboard a Big Ten client, and then I'm flying to another state to help onboard a new staff in the SEC. And so I think our goals are beyond football, but college sports for sure. Basically, any sport that revenue sharing is a part of, you need to make sound business decisions with the dollars that you as a GM are allocated to, whether that be volleyball or whether that be football. If you're spending $10,000 or $10 million in your roster, you still need to have a great decision-making framework behind that. And so we want teams to be able to power that process on Dropback.
Luke, one of the challenges with, again, a startup company, a software, which means there's always going to be new features, always going to be growing, is taking in that feedback from a bunch of programs that do it a bunch of different ways, but still sticking to, hey, this is what we at Dropback are going to hang our hat on. How do you balance those two as you're kind of navigating, like you said, 3-4 different stops in the next couple of weeks, knowing that, hey, we've got to continue to add features and upgrade what we currently have?
Yeah, I think twofold. One is that's actually our edge. I think a lot of other companies in this space, and again, no knock, just so we're doing things different, where our entire headcount, everyone's an engineer, everyone's technical, everyone can write code, even I write code. And so the gap between team has an idea and we implement it is not team asks customer success manager, who then passes it on to his manager, who then tells the CTO, who then has to delegate it to the engineers that sometimes aren't even based in the United States. So there's this massive process to actually go from team has feedback to feedback has been implemented, whereas I sit next to the code. And so my team work really closely together, but also I can help kind of grapple these inherently complex technical concepts and help, relate that back to the teams. So I think our feedback loop is quicker than most. And then second, there really isn't a drop back way. I think that's the cool thing about what we're building is we're building an infrastructure for teams to build their own philosophies about how they're approaching infusing analytics into their decision making. And so unlike other vendors, create their own grading scales or create their own algorithms, try to say how good players are, we actually give teams this drag and drop no code toolkit to make PhD caliber models to power their decision makings. But North Carolina's a client, Kentucky's a client. The way that they use the software is vastly different. The outputs of the data is vastly different because it's just the raw ingredients that go into Dropback. We use Dropback to help understand and cook the ingredients to be the outcome that every team wants to see. So I think both those things, just the feedback loop is tighter than anybody in the industry. And second, we don't have an opinion. We integrate with a ton of different data sources. We don't have an opinion on who's the best. We give you the tools to basically articulate and understand the data in a way that makes sense for you and your staff. And so, it's not about teams aren't really adopting the Dropback way. Instead, they're using Dropback to scale their way of thinking.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So you, as a way of spreading the word about Dropback, you host your own podcast. You've had a number of really interesting guests on there from across the college football space. What have you learned from that? And what are the major, I would say, stressors that are facing today's GM, assistant GM, DPP, director of scouting, et cetera, et cetera?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing that I've found is that the decisions being made, again, carry more weight. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but in the past, it was you watch film to develop an opinion and you throw an offer at him because it's awesome if he comes. If not, so be it. If he comes, we kind of have, he can be a walk-on. We have infinite spots, so to speak. So it's the weight of the decision, it was important to get the right guys, but also hey, if you miss a couple guys, whatever, or conversely, if you're a blue blood, you have the opportunity just to hoard talent and next man up mentality. Now you have a strict 105. Now every decision you're making is attached with a dollar amount. And so if you waste a spot and you waste $1 million because you missed, the first time, A, that is being measured. And then B, whoever manages that decision, their butt's on the line. And so I think there's more of a heightened sense of urgency around how do we make more, how do I say this? There's a heightened sense of urgency around making decisions that have a process behind them versus just I watched this film, he's a dog. If he's a dog and you miss, that doesn't look good on you. And so I think that's where a lot of these teams are trying to implement the same processes as the pros, because the pros have a very regimented way of thinking. And not to say that college teams didn't have a regimented way of thinking, but it's really hard to have a regimented way of thinking when you have data across 6 different systems and you use a Google spreadsheet for this, and then you use a random board website for that. And so just helping teams grapple everything into one sphere, one private database is kind of our mission as a company. But that's because of the stressor we hear from teams, which is I need to make great data-driven decisions, and I can't today because I don't have the tools and processes to implement those decisions. So that's probably the biggest stressor I hear. And it's obviously very validating for me hosting the podcast, hearing that that's the stressor when we're trying to, build a business where we're trying to solve those stressors for teams. So
you've already kind of addressed this, but Luke, do you get the sense that today's college GMs are prepared for record keeping and the salary management that the job demands today? I mean, I think even at the college level, there's a perception, oh, you're a GM. Well, you're basically the talent guy. You're doing all the scouting. Is that the case in today's college football space?
Yeah, I think that's actually that's an important question, because I think there are teams out there who are thinking about this as a split. I will do the personnel scouting stuff, and then I'll pass it over to the bean counter to go figure out how to fit into the budget. It's actually all in one. And it's not to say that a GM's job is going to be managing cash flow and monitoring different financial plans. But the idea is because every single decision is so rigorous. And like I mentioned, these teams are having to make decisions of oh, is this guy good? It's it goes way beyond that. It's is he going to be slotted into our backup running back spot? Well, we budgeted $100,000 for that spot. And so when we talk to his agent, if he's saying $350,000, but he's only producing per our models as a backup, running back. It's just way more sophisticated, but everything I just said is rooted in can we get him in the bounds of our budget? Can we get him in the bounds of our roster limits remaining? And so I don't think that it's that teams need. What I found is the greatest teams don't necessarily think about it as we're going to do what we've always done, and then we're going to add this money guy and our problems will be solved. It's the money management is actually that is arguably the driving factor behind the decisions. Not just, let's watch this film, decide if he's good, and then we'll just like figure out the budget repercussions later. And so I don't think that, I wouldn't say that teams aren't prepared for it. Obviously, there's great talent in the space, and we're seeing rapid growth in front offices. But again, I can't blame teams because the status quo has been the same forever. And literally overnight on July 1st, everything changed. And we just got done with the Porta cycle where we learned that a lot of the processes that has worked in the past just simply isn't going to work in the future. And so, I think this is just there's massive opportunity for people to step up in the space and rethink how they're doing things, because the way it's worked for the last 10 years, unfortunately or fortunately, isn't going to be what's most successful for the next 10. So yeah, I think the opportunity is less about how do I get really good at managing my cash and doing balance sheets and managing my whatever. It's more like, how do I actually factor in and infuse kind of a financial component into the recruiting process better than anybody. I think those are the teams that are going to have a really leg up.
Yeah. It's a real challenge for sure. Meet Luke, meet me, meet Rodrik. Not Rodrik. Rodrik won't be there. Well, but
come early in the week if you want to meet me.
On Friday, February 27th in Indianapolis at the Convention Center, the ITL, the Dropback ITL Symposium. Don't miss it. If you need details, you can get them at Inside the League on Twitter.